Now on to our main feature of the evening. And about a year ago, the very foundation of Kenyan democracy was shaken. On June the 25th, 2024, a generation rose, not in the traditional political rallies of old, but through the digital pulse of their interconnectivity. That's right, they were the Gen Z generation, and they marched onto Parliament, a moment that would never be forgotten and etched into the nation's history. Our very own Brenda Wanga talked to some of the key players in that movement and brings us this special report. Take a listen.
Last year in June, something extraordinary happened in Kenya. A generation often dismissed as apathetic rose up with an unprecedented fury, shaking the very foundations of the established political norm. This was not a protest led by politicians, nor fueled by tribal aspirations. This was Kenya's Gen Z uprising.
Besides the motor vehicle circulation tax, which
it is confirmed that vehicle owners will subject
taxes.
And unleavened bread will remain zero rated.
Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
The catalyst was the 2024 finance bill. The 2-year-old Kenya Kwanza government needed to support its 3.9 trillion shillings budget proposal with a raft of new taxes. For Kenya's youth, many facing unemployment and a high cost of living, these taxes felt like a direct assault on their future.
Kama ni salaries are being increased, si watoto who are not being paid, wazazi wetu ndo wanaumia. Sina hao ndio wanakuwa increased, but sasa pia tax yao inakuwa increased. Sasa mimi nikienda kwa streets, naenda hapo kutetea mzazi wangu, juu kama yeye hana, mimi sina. Yeye ameenda kunitafutia. Sasa unaenda hapo kutetea watu wengi sana.
In my family, I've lost my auntie, my mom's sister. I've lost my grandmother to cancer. And then seeing that they are going to start adding these taxes that are going to increase the cost of care to cancer patients. I have a child, and increasing taxes on diapers and as a woman on sanitary towels, it just didn't make sense to me at all. The cost of living, the basic cost of living was going to increase, and the taxes that were being accumulated as a result of that wasn't being directed towards, I don't know, development of the health sector or education or even infrastructure. We are seeing politicians moving around with these big vehicles and planes, and they have these fancy watches and clothes and all that. For me, it didn't make sense to me. So it was a lot of frustration.
The main driver for going to the streets was the finance bill. And it's because I'd done a project in Kibra about period poverty from a fellowship that I was doing the previous year. And that eco-levy tax it just didn't sit right with me. And it's the first time I actually just got into seeing what period poverty does in the country.
Many of the youth felt unseen, unheard, and relegated to the back burner of economic matters. Attempts to get their views heard began even before that bill was debated.
Before the finance bill was read, I came in actually with some friends. There was a part for public participation where we write a petition and submit it to the parliament physically. So we went there, but we were told we can't enter because of our dress code. We were told to come back with official wear, so we just returned.
and an enlightened mass of young people with no outlet for their frustrations and with looming changes that could upend their lives resorted to the one place where they knew they had control and influence: the digital space. What began as murmurs of discontent quickly amplified online. Social media platforms, X, TikTok, Instagram, became the virtual town square where frustrations coalesced into calls for action. It was a space at KOT Sonko, also known as Marvin Mabonga, was very familiar with, and with good reason.
We didn't start to reject the finance bill in the year 2024, but it began in the year 2023. But now in the year 2023, we didn't have those clauses that really touched on the young people, especially those who use the digital platform. Remember, on digital, the digital creators were going to be taxed, overtaxed. And even today, of course, they do tax. We pay 16% for us to get that blue check from the Twitter, I mean X. When we realized that we are being charged for content creation, we went deeper to read the Finance Bill 2024 and realized that the entire document, the entire proposed bill was so punitive, and it was against the will of the young people, because we felt like we are being overtaxed, yet we don't have any job, we are doing nothing. And so we had to ensure that we reach out to the members of parliament. Remember, there is a time where we did Salimia MPs, and we found their phone numbers. We tried to contact them, we called them, and even to send them direct messages on WhatsApp. But then they didn't listen to us.
The digital revolution had changed political engagement in Kenya. Unlike previous generations, Gen Z didn't need traditional leaders or established political parties to organize. Their networks were extensive, decentralized, and incredibly effective.
As a way of keeping a promise,
the X spaces, which were also streamed on other digital platforms, became the meeting ground for thousands of youth both in and out of Kenya, providing updates on the progress of the bill and, more importantly, providing civic education on the bill.
The most important thing that the spaces played is that the civic education part. Remember, not all the young people had read the finance bill, but most of the young people had read the finance bill. And so we could bring in experts on those X spaces. We could bring in those who have mastered all the clauses in the finance bill to explain to the audience what the finance bill 2024 means to the people. And so when we brought in those experts speaking about the finance bill, you find out that any person who had not read the finance bill and had something, there are so many clauses that are so punitive to them, it used to judge them. And it actually, when you are charged, you automatically go to the street. And so the X spaces actually, besides mobilization, we use the X spaces for civic education.
Social media became more than just digital war rooms for the movement.
We are not happy. And of course, if these things are going to happen this way,
information about where to meet, what routes to take, and even real-time information about police movements all flowed through these digital lenses. On the 18th of June 2024, the protests moved from the digital spaces onto the streets of the capital, Nairobi. Malcolm and his friends were part of that protest. The face of the protest in the country had changed.
The first day we didn't have shirts. So, unakuja tu venye uko. You have the whistle, you have the flag, a mask, but a mask was for everyone because ya tear gas. Hiyo ndio niseme the key main attire unafaa kuwa nayo. Just come with whatever you have, but just carry a whistle and a flag and a mask and water.
The protests that day were akin to a carnival in the CBD.
Anguka nayo kama uko na new cut, anguka nayo kona pati na magwash,
Police police presence was minimal. When dusk fell, they left to mobilize again for Thursday, the 20th, the day of the mega protest. The protest that started gently had grown in both size and intensity. From small gatherings, they swelled into massive demonstrations in cities across the country, particularly Nairobi. And with the growing numbers came the inevitable confrontation.
We are not going anywhere. We are rejecting the finance bill. Parliament tutafika. Niskume. I'm here for Kenya. I'm here for my people. I'm here for your rights.
Shakira Wafula became one of the faces of the resistance to the increasing police high-handedness.
But the guys I was standing with at that point, we came to an agreement that if the police come at us again, we wouldn't move, because that back and forth, there was no progress. We were saying we want to go to Parliament, and we were just having this like back and forth with the police, and we were not advancing towards Parliament. Unfortunately, when the police actually came, I found myself left alone, and a lot of the people we were talking with had already retreated back. And for a second, I wanted to run back as well, but I made that decision. Like, I'd already decided that, agreed that we are not retreating, we're going to stand. So the best I could do, one young lady against 4 police officers, was just, run my mouth and hope it saves me, and it actually worked.
I'm here for Kenya, I'm here for my people, I'm here for your rights.
For Halif, the quest to right a wrong brought him face to face with another injustice, spurring him into a nearly deadly clash with the police and strengthening his resolve to fight.
Na hata pale nikipata mbele sisi hata mambo again si mambo na financial bill au nilikuwa nimejam juu na cheki karawa napiga dem, like hata kwa Bible kwa Quran naomba msipige madem, like wewe manzo uko na gun umejidefend kila kitu, dem manzo juu uko na maji na flower, seriously unapiga dem na tear gas, like wewe ni mwanaume bro, like so mimi pale nikienda pale mbele nilikuwa nataka hiyo cop like honestly hata sikujua nafikiria nini, but nimejam juu sisi yangu nikienda hapo mbele bebe na gutuka nilikuwa peke yangu, like asirangu amenipeka pale mbele, like nilikuwa hapa alafu some like a few meters hivi kiasi ndo sasa walikuwa. So time ndo nikafanywa cop kama gota, nikafazile mastingo deadly. Kuna cop flying hapo juu hapo kaonekana na kanifanyia hivi, mimi nikamfanyia reject. So time namfanyia reject ndo akanipiga nayo maji. So kunipiga nayo maji sasa niko like asadika nikapanda zaidi manze jo kiatu kwanza nimetoka, simu yangu sioni simu yangu manze, sasa nikaanza ile gasa nikatu nataka kupanda hiyo kitu manze, yani tumejam sasa, tumejam. So again manze nikachikidia tena another chick tena aitwangaje Stephen Wanjiko, alikuwa amevaa kala green nitongaje flare nikaziza mvua, nikachikidia the same person anapiga tena dem tena. Tami niko like surely man go yani aje tena, nikachukua dem nikamwambia baby girl mama manze jo, like nili feel too yo sorry for her, nikamchukua tena nikambeba tena. The same time nikienda tena kumchukua tena the same pass, the same yo quarter cannon ikanipiga tena mara ya pili. Hapo sasa mara ya pili ndio watu wanachikiza my incidents ka happen. Majalen kuna skazu kundani.
The 20th would also mark a watershed moment in the protests. In the midst of what had seemed like a street party, an identified armed police officer took aim and fired. When the crowds cleared, 29-year-old Rex Masai lay writhing in pain from a gunshot to the upper middle part of his thigh. He bled to death. It was a moment that galvanized the protesters even further.
And we asked ourselves, what are we going to do? Because these guys are still proceeding with the bill was actually proceeding to the second reading, if not the third reading. And so we found it was so prudent for us to have a verbal communication on the digital platform. So we started hosting spaces. When we did that, is it on 20th? Yeah, it was on 20th. Whereby now the young people were so charged, and most of them they were ready for anything. So we went to the streets because we realized that most of the young people were arrested on 18th, and so we decided, let us go as many as we want to go to the streets on 20th. If they arrest us, let them arrest everybody so that we can fill those police cells. And so the protest escalated across the country.
Lawrence Gishuru and Lilian Anyango are some of the youth from outside Nairobi who answered to the call to localize the protests.
Katika hii mji ya Karatina, sisi tulitokea sisi wote tukiwa na umoja, tukiwa vijana na tukapewa support na wazazi wetu na wenzetu ambao ni wanarika wenzetu. Tukatokea pale, nia yetu ilikuwa moja. Nia yetu ilikuwa tu kutokea pale na kuongea kwa sauti moja ili hii serikali yetu iweze kutusikiza kama vijana juu hatuko tumesikizwa, maslahi yetu haiko imesikizwa na imetiliwa maanani.
Of course, other issues zilikuja after like extrajudicial killing, kulikuwa na police brutality and many more other things zenye zilifanya tukaendelea kutoka nje. Yeah, there is a pride in knowing that you are fighting for a change in your country. So of course, I felt like I am creating an impact, being part of the movement and ensuring that we create a better future for everyone.
Reject the finance bill.
The movement spread beyond the streets and the digital space. The Occupy drive saw the youth take control of places of worship, deplatforming politicians from the pulpits and spreading the anti-finance bill message in readiness for the main #Occupy Parliament Thursday.
That weekend, it's when the politicians and everyone was talking about it in churches, labeling us as paid criminals and all that. So I personally took that to heart. Because when you look at it, what they were trying to do was reject the finance bill, which would benefit every citizen regardless of the age. But the little support you're getting, it's from our peers. And our peers, some of them are still afraid of dying, obviously. And our parents are afraid of losing us.
Around that week, there's a child who was shot in a bus. It was a stray bullet. And that's the thing that radicalized me for the protest. And I said, okay, now there's nothing funny about this. I mean, when you're out there on the streets and it's tear gas and people are returning officers are returning the canisters to the cops, that's a lot of fun. But when it came to the claiming of a life, I thought, hey, now we ought to be more responsible with our image. We ought to say the things. And that's the thing that radicalized me.
The protest reached their apex with the unthinkable.
I'm ready to die on my birthday.
What's your name?
22-year-old kid. On a day nikamilishe masiku zangu na nikufe kama nina miaka zangu.
The occupation of Parliament. A symbolic act of defiance that sent shockwaves across the nation and beyond. Thousands of youth defied police water cannons, tear gas and bullets, rubber and rail, to access the scene where MPs were voting their futures away. The determined youth were no match for the force of the law enforcement deployed that day. And in the blink of an eye, and in the most direct assault on government in decades, protesters overwhelmed police and stormed Parliament compound.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm here to address you. You must go.
Malcolm remembers the energy that day.
See, we were just following the crowds now. Siko uko mbele kwa the front lines, but I was among the bunch that was up ahead. So when you to me, like, wow, you could literally feel, okay, personally, me nilifeel yo, kuna some sense of achievement. Like, hey, nye, tumefika parliament hii, juu literally ilikuwa impossible na tunaweza kufa leo. So the point ati tunaenda kaa leo tutalala home, hiyo hadi haikuwa ina cross. Tulikuwa tunataka kufika parliament. Personally nilikuwa najua sitarudi home, but nilikuwa najua sitakufa pia. Sasa sijui aje. What we are doing ni back and forth. Tunakuja, tunaingia, then wanafire, tunarudi chini. Kila mtu chini, we go down. Then zikiisha, tunarudi tena juu, tunakam chini, tunarudi chini. So ikatusumbua sana wakati tupia nyingi sana.
We marched to the streets and the finance bill document was being passed in the parliament. By that time, I remember Moses Wetangula saying that they have a quorum so they can transact business.
Must members of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will those of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Transacting business, the punitive bill. So we marched through the parliament. I remember very well when we approached the parliament. Personally, I had to host a space again. I used my phone during that event on the streets. So I had to host a space again to ensure that those people who are not on the streets can hear what is really happening on the ground.
But that invasion came with a high price for some families. Scores of people were shot at by police with live bullets. At least 5 succumbed to their injuries. David Chege, a celebrated IT specialist and Sunday school teacher, was amongst those who paid with their lives for demanding good governance and the fall of the finance bill. In the immediate aftermath of that invasion of parliament, the government capitulated.
I concede, and therefore I will not sign the 2024 finance bill, and it shall subsequently be withdrawn.
The contentious finance bill was withdrawn. On the surface, it was a resounding victory.
We achieved more than any other generation has ever achieved, because it's not easy for the president to reject the finance bill, especially when he's the one who is championing for that document. So for the finance bill 2024, yeah, we did achieve, because it never sailed through, even as much as the members of parliament voted for the bill. But remember, who are the people that put them in that parliament or in that house? We the people. And so we did achieve what we wanted.
It was worth it to a percentage, I don't know, because hakuna changes at this size. It was worth it in a perspective, kuna maybe wase wali get kuna ngana the COVID millionaires. So maybe unaweza pata kulikuwa na the maandamano millionaires. Kuna wase pia walibambika, but for me there's still no changes. Na ndo maana wase bado kishia tupige lapadi huko area fulani, wase kama bado you must go. There are no changes, but ukienda area fulani ambapo you must still go. There are no changes. Ungekuwa you must stay. But people are still with the same hashtag. You must go, man.
The movement was defined by its lack of conventional leadership. There were no prominent politicians or tribal leaders at its helm. It was a reflection of a generation that valued individualism but recognized the power of collective action. But as the dust settled on the physical protests, cracks began to emerge in the collective movement, with some of those who had been seen as the faces of the struggle retreating to the established order of business.
When we said we are partyless, it is because the existing political parties were not working for the demographic that is the youth. And we the ones who were on the streets were not catered for. We didn't have space at the table. When we said we are tribeless, it meant that for far too long, for close to 6 decades, tribes have been used to galvanize us away from the common good of nationhood. And when we said we were leaderless, the existing leaders at the time were not speaking, were not saying, were not doing the things that we wanted them to do. Excuse me. It did not mean that we were averse to any of these things. We just meant that we wanted a reimagination and a reinvention of this whole system. We were saying that the system is not for us. In a democracy, it's supposed to be for the people, by the people. But this was not it for us, as the people who are protesting.
While the political realignments have happened in the aftermath of those protests, the cost borne by the families of close to 60 people who were killed during that period continues to bite. David Chege's family bears those scars heavily. 1 year down the line, they say life has never been the same since that afternoon of June 25th, 2024.
It's been very devastating for not just me, but the entire family. It's been a hard year, learning how to survive without him. As far as investigations are concerned, nothing has been forthcoming so far For 12 months, we haven't heard anything from the investigative bodies. We haven't heard anything from IPOA. We haven't had any communication from government. No letters, no documents, nothing. That just goes to show that there is a gap in the justice system in this country.
So, did they achieve their mission? The immediate goal of stopping the finance bill was undoubtedly met, but the deeper mission of fundamental political change, of empowering a new generation, remains an ongoing struggle. The Gen Z protests of 2024 marked a watershed moment in the history of Kenya. They showcased a digitally native generation that was not afraid to challenge the status quo and pay the ultimate price. The scars remain while the quest for justice continues, but the movement that was birthed then has etched its place in the future of the country. Brenda, Wanga, Citizen TV, Nairobi.